What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my unit review and builds guide for Diamant, Alear, and Rearmed Eitr. So Diamant is a very strong melee nuke and a sword infantry unit with his preferred weapon Fair Fight Blade. This gives him -1 special cooldown, and at start of combat, if his HP is at or above 25%, then he can get a bunch of things in the combat. So he gets +5 to all of his stats and also gets true damage based on 25% of his defense, which is quite a lot. And he also gets the true damage reduction based on 25% of his defense. This is also called flat damage reduction because it's not relative in nature. We have seen this on Brave Dimitri, Asker, Har's Weapon Refine, and some other units as well. So having this flat damage reduction is extremely helpful because Diamant does have really good defense, and having this kind of damage reduction means that you're not going to be getting it pierced by Deadeye Lethality or specials like that. So it is a very strong thing for tanking, and Diamant is going to be making productive use out of that defense for getting a lot of true damage and getting a lot of flat damage reduction. Diamant also gets a lot of effects for both himself and the foe in the combat. So he neutralizes any kind of relative damage reduction skills that are percentage based, that are non-special skills. So this pretty much means that he neutralizes stuff like Close Call, Dragon Wall, any kind of damage reduction like that, which is relative in nature. And also Vital Astra is also another one, but he cannot really pierce through the special damage reduction skills like Godlike Reflexes and the other specials that we have got. So he is going to be helpful in just piercing through the damage reduction of many of the God Swords that stack up a lot of relative damage reduction or just damage reduction in general that is percentage based. He also neutralizes any kind of guaranteed follow-up attacks of both himself and the foe. This is really helpful because it's not going to be easy to double him by these lower units. And finally, he increases the speed difference necessary for unit or the foe to make a follow-up attack by 20 in the combat. So the speed must be at or above 25 to make a follow-up attack. This is usually 5, but this is going to be pretty insane and making it really hard for even fast units to double Diamant. And that is really scary when he just pierces through the damage reduction and hits so hard with his bonfire and true damage. So this is going to be making him a really solid physical tank. And then in the player phase, he gets -1 special cooldown count before his first attack. So it essentially means that with Time Pulse 4, Bonfire becomes a 1 cooldown special. So with this effect, he's able to pre-charge his Bonfire before the first attack and just to kill the opponent with the Bonfire and the true damage that he can get. So it's extremely powerful, but keep in mind that this can be stopped by the dragons who have the Scowl effect because they can decharge the special charge that he gets. So that is worth noting. And then in the enemy phase, he gets half tempo effect, which is offensive, which is basically null guard. So it allows him to retaliate back with Bonfire in the enemy phase and then heal up 10 HP when triggering a special. So this is really helpful, and it pretty much means that he can just spam Bonfires in the player phase and in the enemy phase and do a lot of damage and kill the opponents and not really care about their damage reduction. So I would say that Diamant is not exactly like a lot of the sword infantry units that we have got. I'm not saying that he's bad, but he is good, not in the conventional way that you expect a sword infantry unit to be. He is basically more like a melee nuke and a physical tank than being like an Omni tank or some kind of God Sword. He's definitely not a God Sword, but you have to keep in mind that he can not only stack up damage reduction on top of his true damage reduction like many of the tanks like Brave Dimitri, because he disables the percentage based DR skills. So you can only run Close Call, Repel, any of that, and stack up the damage reduction with the true damage reduction, which is really strong. So his damage reduction ceiling and his bulk is lower than many of the tanks who do have this kind of true damage reduction. So that is worth noting, and a lot of the blue mages or just the magical units that are blue or just magical in nature and have high offenses are going to be a threat to Diamant because he doesn't really have the highest resistance, and like I said, you can only stack up the percentage based DR skills with his flat damage reduction. So his ceiling is a bit lower than a lot of the Omni tanks compared to someone like Brave Dimitri, for example, or Duo Asker. But still, this is going to be helpful in making sure that he can function as a very unique sword infantry unit who's a melee nuke, just killing all of the God Swords and the damage reduction shenanigans that they've got. So he is going to be a really unique unit in that aspect, and I really like his weapon design because having this kind of unit is basically like having Legendary Nana and Asker merged into a unit. Legendary Nana also pierces through damage reduction per hit, and so does Diamant. And just like Asker, he does have the damage reduction, which is flat in nature, but he has got 25% of that. And he also gets true damage, which does a lot of damage. So overall, I really like his weapon design, and he comes with attack defense finish 4 to get even more true damage when he triggers his special. And triggering Bonfire is pretty easy for Diamant because, like I said, in the player phase, he gets that minus on special cooldown charge, and then in the enemy phase, he does have the null guard. So having this true damage and getting the healing is really good, on top of the healing that he can already get in the enemy phase with his weapon. So attack defense finish 4 is the perfect skill for him for melee nuking and for physical tanking. Then he also comes with attack speed Bulwark. Bulwark skill can provide you the obstruct effect, which can be really helpful for him being a melee frontliner. And he can also get the debuffs, which can be helpful to him and gets more healing on top of all of the healing that he gets from his finish skill and his weapon. Time Pulse 4 is also a perfect slotsy skill for him because it brings down Bonfire from 2 cooldown to 1 cooldown so that he can retaliate back with it in the enemy phase, or he can just pre-charge it in the player phase and hit extremely hard. So it's a really good skill that he already comes with. And overall, Diamant is going to be functioning as a really good melee nuke and as a sword infantry unit who can kill the other sword infantry units who are conventionally going to be stacking up a lot of damage reduction. So he has got high base attack of 46, and even though he does have speed of base 36, he's still going to be pretty hard to double because of the condition that he has got in his weapon, which increases the speed difference that you need to actually double him. So despite having this kind of middling speed, he can still be really hard to double for many of the modern units. Still, there are crazy units who can get crazy fast nowadays, so you have to watch out for them. And I would say that you would mainly have to invest in his attack and defense so that he can retaliate back with Bonfire and kill the opponents. And speed investment is something that you could look into at max investment. Otherwise, most of the time, he's going to be fine with like attack or defense investment. Overall, I would say that Diamant is an amazing unit who can pierce through the damage reduction, which is really helpful against a lot of the God Swords and a lot of the damage reduction that we have in the metagame. And being hard to double and hitting so hard with his bonfires and the true damage does make him a really amazing nuke. Diamant can provide the much awaited attack defense finish to many of the units, and Brave Dimitri does come to mind with his true damage reduction. So attack defense finish can be a pretty good skill for him, and it can also be a pretty good skill on a lot of slower melee units like Skahawk, for example. And Evil can also run Special Spiral and Time Pulse 4 so that she can loop Bonfire. So whenever you're going to be triggering specials really easily on these kinds of slow melee units who have high defense, attack defense finish 4 can be a good skill to have on them. Diamant already comes with a pretty amazing base kit, so there's really not much you have to do other than giving him an assist and running something like attack defense form to just stack up even more attack and defense. And if you're going to be investing a bit more into him for maybe using him in Aether Raids defense, where you see a lot of God Swords, then lull attack defense can be a good skill that you can run. And you can also run Hardy Bearing Sacred Seal because he can not only pierce through the divine pulse of fallen female pilots, so that's where Hardy Bearing does help. And it can also help against Ninja Camillas that may try and Vantage sweep your team. So it's a pretty good Sacred Seal to have against these Vantage units. And he's going to be just shredding through a lot of the God Swords or the tanks that are going to be trying to tank your team. And living through Diamant is going to be a really tall order because he is going to be hitting so hard with Bonfire and the extra attack that Medius and Bramimon can provide him with. So if you're not running a near save unit on your Medius team, then Diamant can just function as a melee frontliner and can be a pretty hard thing to get past him or even live him. So he can definitely be a pretty interesting option in Aether Raids defense. And I think I'll also try and use him in Aether Raids defense because of how he can just bust through a lot of tanks and the God Swords, which are usually used for tanking. You can also use him in Aether Raids offense as a Gale Force Initiator. Now this build is to be expected out of me because I use quite a lot of Brave Alm and Edelgard with their new Refine with AoE Special, because Diamant does get the true damage added into the AoE Special. Now he's not going to be able to pierce through the damage reduction when using the AoE Specials, but still he's going to be hitting so hard, and he's like a Brave Alm basically that has the slot A open. And he is going to be a really strong unit to be used with Winter Bernadetta, Spring Bernadetta, or Lysithea, so that he can use Ardent Sacrifice to get into the Wrath range and also get into the Wings of Mercy range of your Gale Force allies. So Wrath pretty much allows you to charge up your Growing Wind, and Wrath damage, which is true damage, does get added into the AoE special. So if you've seen my Aether Raids offense videos, you already know what I'm talking about, and you can already envision how Diamant can function similarly to Brave Alm, how I use him. So yeah, this is definitely a build that you can run for Aether Raids offense. Instead of tanking, you can be a Gale Force initiator with this kind of AoE special. And at max investment, Diamant can just run Distant Reversal as a pretty nice distant counter skill and just function with his base kit. Now you can definitely try and use speed at this kind of max investment, but most of the time he's just going to be killing a lot of the fast opponents with his bonfire at this kind of max investment by investing in his attack super boon and his defense. So you can still get by just investing in his attack and defense, and he's still going to be really hard to double at this kind of max investment with a bonus doubler Sacred Seal. Speed investment is something I would recommend only if you're trying to use him as an Omni tank at max investment. The reason being is that when I was running simulations, a lot of the units which can just kill him are stuff like Legendary Veronica, who can get super fast at plus and merge, and by getting some speed buff from mythic units, and then by running lull speed resistance. So those units can be annoying, especially because they have the dive bomb effect and they can get crazy fast. So investing into speed is going to be helpful at that kind of max investment, and only really for like Aether Raids offense and for hyper competitive stuff where you're going to be facing units who can reach like over 90 speed and such. So distant attack speed solo is an option that you can run in his Slaughter at max investment, and Mystic Boost 4 is useful over Null Counter Disrupt 4 because he already ignores the percentage based DR. So Null Counter Disrupt isn't really helpful that much with its damage reduction, and I mean it can give you the attack and speed debuff, but Mystic Boost 4 can actually disable the Wrathful Staff, which is really helpful in tanking Duels and stuff like Fallen Maria, which are going to be pretty common in the Dark Season, and he can also be used in the Astro Season for tanking. So I would say that he can function as a speedy tank, as an Omni tank, but only really at max investment, because like I've said before, his tanking ceiling is a bit lower because of the fact that he cannot stack up the percentage based DR skills like Brave Dimitri, for example. So it's not going to be like Brave Dimitri, but he's still going to be hitting really hard with Bonfire, and he is going to be able to function by stacking up speed, and this can be helpful against many of the faster opponents that have some kind of dive bomb effect like Legendary Veronica, which was killing him before I invested into his speed for the simulation. So this is something that you can do, and also provide him support from something like Legendary or Young Eliwood with the bonus doubler, or Legendary Male Robin with the Grand Strategy. Many of the light mythics are actually really good with Diamant because Goto can give him the damage reduction against the AoE specials. So if you face some kind of Spring Sonia or something like that, then he can make use of that damage reduction, and Asker can give him the Resonance Blades effects, which can be really helpful, and Peony can provide the debuff neutralization, which can be really good, unless you're using him with Legendary Male Robin. In that case, it is not the best of the synergies. Finally, at max investment, if you're going to be using him in Arena, then you can try and use him with Distant Ferocity and Ruptured Sky. Because we're using Ruptured Sky, there's really no need of Time Pulse because he can always retaliate back with Ruptured Sky and pre-charge that in his player phase. So you can just run Joint Drive attack so that he can have even more tag. And his best lobby skill for Arena has not been released yet. It is going to be a lull attack defense so that he can just take less damage from the opponents and punish the status effects on the opponents, like the Order status, for example, which they can get out of Duopini or the Oath 4 skills. So it is going to be an option that you can run in Arena, and even if he focuses on attack and defense, you're going to be fine, as he's going to be killing a lot of things with his Ruptured Sky, and the only things that are going to be able to survive him are going to be other units with true damage reduction like Duo Asker, for example. Eitr is the first Rearmed Beast unit as a Blue Beast Cavalier, and I've made a full video going over the best users of Arcane Nihility, so you can check that out after this video. So this weapon gives her -1 special cooldown, and at start of combat if her HP is at or above 25%, then she can get +5 to all of her stats, and also gets the Binding Necklace effect, which we have seen on Freya, which is basically the faux buff stealer effect. So that can be really good, especially in the game modes where you're going to be facing buffed up opponents. So it is going to be pretty much debuffing the opponent and giving you the extra stats in the combat. She can also get true damage based on 15% of her speed, including with the damage from AoE specials. And finally, if her speed is more than foe speed, then she gets the full null follow-up effect, which is really good for being a beast unit. And then the beast transformation for her is going to be giving her +2 attack, and also does have the attack defense clash built in, which does give you the debuff on foes attack and defense. And if X is greater than or equal to 5, then you pretty much get 30% damage reduction from foes first attack, which means that whoever initiated, if they have moved 2 or more spaces, then you pretty much get the damage reduction. So Arcane Nihility is a pretty nice weapon, and it really goes well with her Power of Nihility, which is her exclusive slot A skill, which makes her unique compared to all of the other Beast Cavaliers. So if the number of allies adjacent to her is 1 or less, then she can get the following effects in the combat. And she gets +9 to all of these stats in the combat, which is absolutely insane. And then she gets special charges on both her attacks and the enemy's attacks. So she's going to be able to trigger Luna pretty easily, even against the foes that have the guard skill. But of course, she doesn't really have access to any kind of half tempo effect like Nerthus, so guard effects can still be a bit annoying. And if the unit deals damage using a damaging special, then she can heal up X% of her max HP. And this X depends on the maximum special cooldown count, multiplied by 20 and then added by 10. So basically with Luna, she can heal up 50% of her max HP when triggering Luna, which is really helpful. So it pretty much becomes like a mini Either, which is going to be helpful with the self-sustain and does go really well with the special charges that she can try and get. So Power of Nihility is definitely really good, providing her these special charges and the extra stats, which are definitely really good with her high base 46 speed, which does have a super boon and also 44 base attack. So it is going to be making her bulky for a Cavalier because of the extra stats, and also because she has got Beast Sense 4. So this is a new tier 4 skill, and unfortunately we don't really have a tier 3 version of this. So it removes the condition to transform and inflicts -4 speed and defense debuff on the foe in the combat. And it does have Phantom Speed 1.5 built in, which is basically +7 speed. So it can help you get the speed check for the damage reduction. And then it can provide you the speed-based damage reduction, which can go up to all the way 40. So this is definitely a really nice tier 4 skill, and it is going to be making her bulky with the damage reduction from Arcane Nihility and the extra stats that she gets from her slot A and weapon. And she can also run Speed Smoke if you want to stack up even more damage reduction, but she does come with a pretty good slot C skill in Alarm Attack Speed, which is going to be giving her the Canto 1 status and the visible buffs to her attack and speed, which is going to be helping her function as a God Beast unit essentially, because she does have a lot of damage reduction and does have null follow-up with Arcane Nihility. Overall, I would say that Eitr is a pretty good blue Beast Cavalier with a lot of stats and a lot of bulk. Unfortunately, she is going to be competing a bit with Nerthus, who does Gale Force a lot better because of having the half tempo effect or the null guard effect, and does have Ice Mirror. So it is going to be a bit of a competition among these two, but still Eitr can do a lot of damage with her weapon and her slot A skill, especially with damage reduction and a lot of healing with her Power of Nihility, which is something that Nerthus does not have. So overall, she's going to be a good unit. Beast Sense is a pretty good skill that you can fodder her for, but unfortunately can only get it at the same time with Arcane Nihility. So you'll need like 2 copies of Beast Sense and Arcane Nihility if you want to give this skill to a Beast Cavalier. Newer Leith is actually one of the best users of Beast Sense because of the fact that she's got null follow-up built in her weapon, and it's a full null follow-up. And she also has Phantom Speed built in her weapon, so it can stack up with the Phantom Speed of Beast Sense and also stack up with the damage reduction of her weapon, which is really good. So she is definitely one of the best units to get this skill. And then Fallen Muarim is one of those units who is very popular as a merge project, so this is a really good slot B skill for him, so that he can get the damage reduction along with Speed Smoke 4, and you can give null follow-up to him, or even outsource null follow-up and run some other Sacred Seal. And then Hatari Nyla and even regular Nyla are pretty good users of this skill, and because of the tempo effect built into these infantry beast units and their weapons, you can easily use the finish kill. And Hatari Nyla does have the -1 special cooldown, so she can use Moonbow and basically stack up the damage reduction with Beast Sense and Speed Smoke, and she does have full null follow-up and Neo Trace built in her weapon. So these are some of the better users of Beast Sense, and basically having full null follow-up with Beast Sense is really good because you can function as a solid fast unit who does negate the follow-up attacks of the opponents and can bypass the follow-up negation effect while still getting the damage reduction. So those are going to be the best units who can get this. The only units which are not able to have this skill are the armored beast units. Even flying beast units can run this, but there's no flying beast unit who has got access to full null follow-up in their weapon, unless of course you outsource that through some kind of support. Eitr's base kit is really good, and all you need to do is give her reposition and you should be done. You can run attack speed solo as the Sacred Seal or even speed defense catch. Both of these do work. And you guys know me, because she can get these special charges from Power of Nihility, I'm gonna recommend Gale Force. Even though she gets no healing out of that, it is still gonna be an option that you can use in Aether Raids offense. And I feel like Nerthus is a better Gale Force unit for the initiation because she's a mythic unit, so she can run the Double Fury build and get into the Wings of Mercy range a lot easily, while Eitr can function as a pretty good Wings of Mercy unit, especially with alarm attack and speed and the special charges that she can get. Of course, you know, she doesn't really have the half tempo effect, so it is going to be a bit annoying with the guard skills, but still you can easily have like a 2 cooldown Gale Force with Asker and some other support like Garrick, for example. And Light Season is where you can use a lot of these units like Asker and Ash, for example, so it is going to be pretty easy for her to transform anyways. And teleporting does count towards the clash condition, so you can actually get the attack and defense debuff from Arcane Nihility pretty easily. And she already has full null follow built in her weapon, so it is going to be a pretty good thing for Wings of Mercy Gale Forcing and for shenanigans and Aether Raids offense, even though you get absolutely no healing by running Gale Force. Still, you know, it's something that you can use her for. And then finally, if you want to stack up damage reduction, then you can run Speed Smoke 4. And she's going to be losing out on the Canto 1 status that you can get from Alarm Attack Speed. But if you just want to make her bulky and have a lot of damage reduction, then this is going to be the option that you can run. Male Alear is a free-to-play unit that everyone can get by logging into FEH from July 18 to 1st of October. And even though he's very similar to female Alear, who we got 6 months before, and his stats are, you know, pretty similar, just marginally different a bit, and has got the same weapon, I still think that he's one of the best free units that we have gotten because of the utility that he provides, and also he's going to be really useful in the limited hero battles with the engage cast because he can provide the charge status to his support partner, and he's basically like a free Godsword that we have gotten, who does have a lot of utility, like I said. So just to recap, Libération, his weapon, does give him minus on a special cooldown, and if he's at or above 25% HP, then he can give charge status to himself and the support partners within 3 spaces for 1 turn. Keep in mind that even though there's no support partner of Alear, Alear is still going to be getting the charge status for himself, and charge status is something that we've seen before in Assault Troop, so it is extremely useful for getting more mobility, but keep in mind that it is a warping support, so it is blocked off by Gatekeeper and Legendary Mer's Warp Bubble, so that's something you have to keep in mind. And for the people who have used Headlong Rush Captain skill, you probably have experienced that in Summoner Duels S. So charge status is really good, and then in the combat you can get +5 to all of his stats, and also debuffs opponent's speed and defense by -12 at max, and the debuffs that he get depends on the number of allies within 3 spaces from distinct game titles ×4. So an easy way of getting this is pretty much using harmonic units which are from different titles, using Naga who's from 2 different titles, and using Legendary Leaf and, you know, other harmonic units basically. So it is pretty easy to get the -12 debuff on the opponent, and then finally he can get speed based damage reduction up to 40%. And he does have pretty good speed stat at base 45 and a super boon in that as well, and base 44 attack. And he can function as a Godsword because of the damage reduction that he can get, and then you can just outsource the null follow-up to him through infantry speed tactic or infantry null follow-up, or even by just running null follow-up Sacred Seal now. So overall, Male Alear is still going to be functioning as a pretty good Godsword with the Repel 4 that he comes with, and attack speed ideal, and Repel 4 is a pretty nice free fodder that he can get if you don't want to use him. And then he has got Green Feud in his slot C, which is kind of underwhelming because the feud skills which are really good right now are like Colorless Feud, for example, which allows you to get through Duo Ymir and Fallen Maria, which is really amazing. Even Red Feud would have been pretty amazing to face other gold swords in my opinion. So yeah, this is definitely a pretty nice unit for free-to-play players and low spenders, and especially if you don't really get female Alear before, you can just have him for free right now. And even though he's not like Summer Fjorm and, you know, not as good as her and some of the recent Godsword units, he's still, in my opinion, a pretty good Godsword because of the speed debuffs that you can get on the opponent. So the speed ceiling of Alear is still better than a lot of these sword infantry units. So still you can use him and function fine with the charge status, which is going to be still making him unique even if we get a lot of Godswords in the future. And this banner itself has got the Godsword Slayer and Diamant, so that is quite a timing. If you want to run male Alear on a budget, then you can simply give him reposition and null follow-up and you're done. And you can easily use him for arena assault and other in-game content, and he's going to be doing you fine. But if you want to give him more skills, then I feel like Time Pulse and Vital Astra are these skills which can make him really good, because then he can stack up even more damage reduction on top of the damage reduction that he gets from his weapon and Repel 4. And Vital Astra is pretty much going to be his best special, along with Time Pulse, trying to pre-charge it and looping it forever. And you can just run Null Follow-Up as the Sacred Seal again, or you can just outsource it and run some other Sacred Seal to stack up even more speed. He can also be used in Summoner Duels, and especially in Summoner Duels S, can open up some other team compositions which can be useful. And if you want to optimize the team composition, then you can definitely give him the Finish skill and Speed Smoke 4 and just outsource the pre-charging of Vital Astra to some other unit, and also outsource the Null Follow-Up effect. So Alear can provide charge status to another unit, which is really helpful. And if they have fixed Canto, then that is the best thing ever, and it can definitely help you with the mobility. One thing which is kind of underwhelming compared to female Alear is the fact that he comes with Repel 4 and not Close Call 4, so he's not going to be retreating after attacking. So that can, change the match at times, because with Close Call, you can actually retreat in the range of a far safe unit, or in the range of your unit who can reposition you backwards and just retreat. With Repel, you're not able to do that, but still he can be useful, especially if you do not have a lot of Summoner Duels S units. Alear can also be used for Aether Raids offense for a Gale Force composition that has a lot of charge units. So you can basically give charge status to your ally support, and then you can have Summer Edelgard who already gets the charge from Assault Troop, and then Brave Crom can just copy that charge status from either Alear or Summer Edelgard or the ally supported ally, and then you can just run Flashing Blade and have speed defense tempo from the Divine Code so that you can Gale Force. And this is definitely a pretty fun strategy that you can do with these units that also have the charge status. Of course, you have to pray that you don't really run into Gatekeeper who can just block the movement of your charge status units. You can also use him in Aether Raids offense as a God Sword, and I feel like their Godlike Reflexes is something that is better than Vital Astra because it is not pierceable by Deadeye or Lethality. So you could run that and pre-charge it through support like Garrick or Veluria, and that is going to be helpful. And then you can run a distant counter skill in the slot A, like Distant Dart or even Distant Attack Speed solo, and you can run Speed Smoke 4 as the slot C skill, and Flashing Blade so that you can loop Godlike Reflexes and basically function as a God Sword tank there. Finally, at max investment, if you want to change Repel, then Spurn 4 is going to be a fantastic option that you can run. And again, you can just run Time Pulse and Vital Astra to pre-charge it and get a ton of damage reduction. Make sure to share this video with your friends if they're trying to pull any of these units, and if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously, and if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks down below or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as God Swords against Diamant. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.